They say childhood shapes who you become. If that's true, then I was molded by absence. My name is Lena Caldwell, and I grew up in a house that looked perfect from the outside: red brick walls, a 2-car garage, even a maple tree in the front yard. But inside, it was hollow, like a stage set. My dad, Tobias, was the kind of man people admired: self-made, honest, driven. He started with nothing, sold construction equipment out of a rusted trailer, and somehow built a thriving logistics company. By the time he was 30, he provided everything: a beautiful home, full fridge, vacations, even private tutoring when I needed it. And then there was Natalie, my mom, stunning, glamorous, always camera ready. But where Dad's love came with sacrifice, hers came with strings. When it came at all, she didn't work, not because she couldn't, but because she didn't want to. And Dad, maybe out of guilt for working so much, let her live like a queen. Shopping sprees, spa weekends, brunches that lasted hours. I used to wonder if she ever felt lucky. If she ever looked at him and thought, wow, this man built all of this for us. Spoiler, she didn't. Dad was patient, too patient. When Mom forgot to pack my lunches, he'd laugh and run out to deliver one. When she missed school events, he made excuses. She got caught in traffic or she wasn't feeling well. But I saw the truth. She never remembered because she didn't care. I was 10 when that truth slapped me in the face. Dad had to travel out of state for a 3-day business summit. He didn't want to go. I remember watching him standing at the kitchen island, clutching his coffee like it held the answers. "Natalie, please," he said quietly. "Lena needs to be picked up by 2:40. Set an alarm if you have to." She rolled her eyes and flipped her perfect hair. "I'm not child, Tobias. I can manage one school pickup." She couldn't. That afternoon, I stood on the school steps with my backpack pressing into my shoulders. The minutes dragged. The sun moved. My friends were long gone. I waited and waited. After 20 minutes, I started walking. The route was familiar sidewalks dotted with jacaranda trees, neighborhood dogs barking behind fences. But when I reached our front door, something felt wrong. The house was locked. I didn't have a key. I knocked. Nothing. Then I heard a voice. Our neighbor, Miss S. Elder, was outside trimming her roses. Her expression shifted from polite to uneasy when she saw me. "Lena?" she called. "Your mom left earlier with her girlfriends?" Said something about a wine tasting in Clearwater. My stomach clenched. I pulled out the emergency phone Dad gave me. Dialed Mom. No answer. I tried again and again. Still nothing. I sat on the front porch, my legs tucked under me, heart racing every time a car passed. The sun began to dip. My fingers turned cold. Miss S. Elder brought me a cardigan and a cup of tea, but no one could thaw the growing panic inside me. By 9 p.m., I gave up on Mom. I called Dad. He picked up on the first ring. "Dad?" I croaked, trying not to cry. "I'm locked out. Mom's not home. I've been waiting since school." Silence. Then his voice steady, but burning beneath the surface. "I'm on my way. Stay with Miss S. Elder tonight, all right?" He drove all night, 12 hours straight. When he arrived, his eyes were bloodshot, his clothes wrinkled, but he didn't say a word about it. He just thanked Miss S. Elder took my bag and hugged me so tightly I thought I'd break. We waited for Mom in silence, sitting in the living room with the lamps off. The clock ticked. My eyes refused to close. At exactly 7:08 a.m., we heard her car in the driveway. The door swung open, and in she came, red lipstick smudged, heels in hand, hair tangled like seaweed. She blinked at us like we were ghosts. "Tobias?" "What? What are you doing home?" Dad stood. I'd never seen him so still. Our daughter was locked out. "For 7 hours?" She laughed and waved a hand. "She's fine. Don't be so dramatic." I flinched when she tried to touch me. Dad's voice cracked through the silence like thunder. "She called me crying, Natalie. You didn't answer your phone. She sat on a porch, in the cold, because her mother was too busy sipping Pinot with her friends." Her face crumpled. Tears came fast, too fast. "I'm sorry," she whispered, falling onto the couch like some tragic heroine. "It won't happen again." It did. But worse than being forgotten was what came after. From that day on, something in her changed. Or maybe she just stopped pretending. When Dad was around, she played the role of doting mom. Warm hugs, questions about my day. She even packed lunch occasionally. But when he left for work or took a call, cold, detached, like I was in the way. The older I got, the more I learned to avoid her. I stayed in my room, headphones on, buried in books and homework. I never invited friends over. I stopped hoping she'd show up to anything. I just adapted. But even adaptation couldn't prepare me for what came next. Dad started getting sick. At first, it was just exhaustion. Then came the stomach pain, the night sweats. I watched the strongest man I knew shrink into someone fragile, hollowed out by something we couldn't name. Doctors couldn't figure it out. Test after test came back inconclusive. But eventually, the diagnosis landed like a hammer: late-stage cancer. He never cried in front of me. He still smiled, still asked about my day. But I saw it how hard he had to try just to stand up. Mom? She pretended to care in public, held his hand in waiting rooms, bragged on Facebook about fighting the battle as a family. But at home, I heard her late-night phone calls. I can't breathe in that house anymore, she told someone. He's always there, moaning. I have to make his food now and clean up after him. It's like I'm trapped. I stood outside the kitchen, fists clenched, heart hammering. I wanted to scream. Instead, I went back to my room and stared at the ceiling until morning. I never told Dad. He didn't need more pain. But oh, he knew. He always did. And one day, he called us both into his home office. I'm selling the company, he said, voice steady but eyes dim. I blinked. Why? The doctors gave me a timeline. 3 months, maybe. I want to make sure everything is in place before I go, I gasped. Mom dabbed at her eyes with a tissue, but her phone was lit under the table. She was scrolling. I should have been surprised. But I wasn't, and neither was he. Because Dad, he wasn't done yet. And this story, my story, is only getting started. After Dad told us about the sale of his company, it was like time folded in on itself. Every day started the same, checking if he was still breathing. I'd tiptoe into his room, hold my breath, and wait for the subtle rise and fall of his chest. When I saw it, I'd exhale and smile like I hadn't just been moments from collapse. Mom? She still played her part. When nurses visited, she'd show up in her silk robe, clutching a coffee mug like she was exhausted from caregiving. She wasn't. She barely even looked at him when it was just us. And yet, somehow, he still tried to shield her from the worst of it. He didn't complain, never raised his voice, never pointed fingers. But I noticed things the way he paused before asking her to bring water, as if debating whether it was worth it. It wasn't. So I stepped in. I became his shadow, brought him soup, helped him shave, sat beside him when the pain hit hardest. I even learned how to read his medical charts. It made me feel like I was doing something. Like, maybe, just maybe, I could keep him here a little longer. But nothing lasts. He grew weaker. The nurse, Carla, an older woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude, began stopping by more often. She pulled me aside one day, gently resting her hand on my shoulder. "Your dad's strong," she said. "But he's close, honey. You need to prepare." I nodded. But I couldn't. And neither could he in his own way. Maybe that's why he started making plans, real plans. Ones Mom didn't know about. He began calling lawyers, accountants, notaries. He'd close the door to his office and whisper into the phone, then wave me in afterward. "Lena," he said one day, voice thin but firm, "I've made some decisions. Everything I've built, it's going to you." I froze. "Me? What about her?" He sighed. "She's never wanted this life. She was never part of the foundation, Lena. You were. You are." I didn't argue. I couldn't. I just reached for his hand and held it tight. Days passed, then weeks, and one Sunday morning, the air in the house changed. I can't explain it exactly, only that I knew before I opened his door. He was gone. His eyes were closed, his hands still, peaceful. And just like that, my world tilted. Mom wasn't there. She'd gone to grab coffee from the hospital cafe and somehow got distracted. Probably bumped into someone she hadn't seen since college, or found a boutique with a limited time sale. When she finally strolled in, the nurse gave her the news. "Oh no!" she gasped, clutching her chest like she was in a soap opera. "Tobias? No!" She cried into her hands like she was shattered. I stared at her, wondering how someone could fake grief that convincingly. At the funeral, she wore black silk and crocodile tears. She stood at the casket and whispered sweet nothings while sneakily checking her phone under her clutch. I wanted to scream. I didn't. I waited. That week was a blur. People came and went. Cards, casseroles, condolences. I moved through it all like a ghost. My friends tried to reach out, but I couldn't talk to anyone, not yet. Not until the storm inside me calmed. Then came my birthday. 19. A strange age, technically an adult, but barely holding it together. I didn't expect much. A card maybe. Some cake. Instead, I woke up to silence. Mom wasn't home. No note. No happy birthday text. Just a dirty coffee cup in the sink and the faint scent of perfume still lingering in the hallway. My heart cracked a little more. That evening, my best friend Kelsey and her mom picked me up and took me to a tiny cafe near the lake. They brought a little store-bought cake with rainbow candles. I laughed for the first time in weeks. It wasn't much, but it felt real. I ended up staying the night at Kelsey's place. I wasn't ready to face that house. The next morning, I came home around 9 a.m. That's when I saw him. A man mid-30s, flashy watch, too much cologne standing in our kitchen, shirtless, like he belonged there. Mom leaned against the counter. Sipping espresso like this was normal. "Oh good, you're back," she said, not even turning around. "Lena, meet Sean, my fiancé." My heart stopped. "Your what?" "My fiancé," she repeated, this time slower, like I was a toddler. "We got engaged last night." "Isn't that wonderful?" I stared. I couldn't speak. My mind was still reeling from the word fiancé, and now I had to process the smug smile on her face. "We need to talk about arrangements," she added, setting down her mug. "Arrangements?" My voice cracked. "Yes, you moving out." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "You're 19 now." "You'll figure it out." I laughed short, breathless. "Are you serious?" "Dead serious," she said, walking past me toward the staircase. "This house, it's mine now, and I deserve to live my life without being weighed down." "Dad left this house to us," I said, panic rising. She paused on the stairs. "Correction. He left it to me. I was his wife." I stood there, frozen, as she reappeared with a half-packed suitcase. My suitcase. Tossing clothes in like they were trash. She didn't even fold them. "You have 1 hour," she said. "Don't make this harder than it has to be." I didn't cry. Not yet. I walked outside, dragging that half-zipped suitcase behind me, and sat on the curb. The same curb where I waited for her when I was 10. Only this time, I wasn't scared. I was done. I called Kelsey. The moment she picked up, I broke. She didn't even hesitate. "Come here. Now." She and her mom made space on their fold-out couch. Kelsey handed me her favorite blanket without a word. Her mom brought me soup, her eyes kind but furious. "You're not alone, sweetheart." And for the first time in days, I believed it. The days that followed felt like sleepwalking through a storm. I stayed at Kelsey's place, curled up on their couch, trying to pretend life wasn't completely upside down. Her mom made hot tea every morning and left it by my pillow. Kelsey kept the mood light, silly movies, inside jokes, late-night rants about high school drama that now felt like a different lifetime. I tried to focus on finals. Not because I cared, but because I needed the distraction. Failing school would have been the cherry on a sundae made of betrayal. And still, even in that chaos, Mom's voice echoed in my head. "This house is mine now." No, it wasn't. I didn't know how or why, but something inside me whispered that this wasn't over. That dad, even in death, wouldn't have left me with nothing. That whisper turned into something louder a few days later. I was sitting on the front steps of Kelsey's apartment building when my phone rang. Unknown number. Normally I would have ignored it, but something told me to answer. "Hello? Miss Caldwell?" The voice was calm, professional, but kind. "My name is Victor Halley. I'm an estate executor handling your father's affairs. Would you be available to come into my office this week? There are matters that require your signature." My breath caught. My mother didn't mention anything. There was a pause. "Yes, that's part of the reason I'm calling you directly." He gave me the address. Downtown. Quiet building. Brick walls and ivy like something out of a movie. His office smelled like old books and fresh paper. Victor stood as I walked in older, with salt and pepper hair, wire-rimmed glasses, and a soft voice that somehow made you feel safe. "Your father was meticulous," he said, opening a thick manila folder. "He anticipated everything, including your mother's reaction." I raised a brow. "You mean the part where she kicked me out 2 weeks after he died?" Victor didn't flinch. "Exactly that part." He slid a document toward me. "Here's the updated will. Signed, notarized, and registered 3 weeks before he passed." I scanned it. At first, the words blurred. Then they hit. He left everything to me. The house, the business profits, all financial holdings. Mom got the car and the jewelry he'd bought her over the years. Nothing more. Tears burned in my eyes. He knew. Victor nodded. "He made sure you'd be protected." Then he handed me an envelope. My name was on the front in Dad's handwriting. I hesitated, then opened it with shaking fingers. "My Lena, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And I'm sorry. I wanted to stay, I really did. But life had other plans. I need to tell you something. I knew about your mother's lies, her absence, the way she treated you. I kept quiet because I thought I could protect you by staying. But I couldn't protect you forever. So I did the next best thing. I made sure she couldn't hurt you again. This isn't revenge, it's closure. Everything I built was for you. You are the only one who stayed when it mattered. The only one who loved me without expectation. Use what I've given you to build your life. Be free. Love you always." Dad, I pressed the letter to my chest and cried quietly, deeply, like something inside me had finally exhaled. Victor waited patiently. When I looked up, his eyes were glossy. "Your father adored you," he said. "He wanted to make sure you never had to beg for love again." I signed the paperwork with trembling hands. When I walked out of that office, the sun felt warmer, the city louder, my spine straighter. I wasn't powerless anymore. I was the legal owner of the house. And Mom didn't know it yet. The day of her engagement party came exactly 1 month after Dad's funeral. The audacity was almost impressive. I'd seen the event flyers, online custom-printed invitations with gold trim and faux calligraphy, catering from a luxury steakhouse, floral arrangements flown in from out of state, an open bar, DJ, even a photo booth. Kelsey showed me a picture of the living room posted on social media. They'd taken down every single picture of Dad, replaced them with romantic canvases of her and Sean sipping wine on the beach. It felt like a gut punch, but I wasn't going to sit back and let her erase him, or me. So I got dressed. Not in morning black, but in deep emerald green. The dress Dad bought me last Christmas. Classy, sharp, and unmissable. I walked up to that house like I owned it, because I did. The music was loud, the lights warm, laughter spilled out from the open windows. People held champagne flutes and fake smiles, nodding along to Mom's obnoxious performative speech about second chances and finally finding real love. When I stepped through the front door, silence spread like a ripple. Heads turned. Mom saw me. Her smile faltered. "What are you doing here?" she hissed, storming over like a wasp in heels. "I live here," I said calmly. "Remember?" She laughed too loudly. "Everyone, this is Lena. Poor thing. Still adjusting to adulthood. She's having trouble letting go." The crowd gave her nervous chuckles. I gave her a look. I pulled the will from my purse. "Actually, you're the one who's going to need to let go." Her smile vanished. "What's that?" "Dad's will," I said, raising my voice just enough. "Turns out he left me the house. And everything in it." The crowd went still. Mom's face flushed. "You're lying. Would you like to read it? Or should I call Victor Halley and put him on speaker?" Her mouth opened, closed. She scanned the room, eyes darting. Sean looked like he wanted to melt into the floor. I took a step forward. "Here's how this is going to work," I said. "You, your fiancé, and all your over-perfumed guests have 10 minutes to leave. After that, I call the cops and report a house full of trespassers." Gasps. Awkward shuffling. People grabbing purses and jackets. Mom tried to save face. "Lena, be reasonable." "No," I cut in. "For once in your life, you be reasonable. This isn't your house. It never was." And that's when Sean backed away, physically moved across the room. "I didn't sign up for this," he muttered. "You said you inherited everything." Mom turned to him in desperation. "We can fix this, no," he said flatly, grabbing his coat. "I'm out." She followed him out the door, still shouting, still bargaining. He didn't look back, and just like that, the house was empty again. But this time, it felt like mine. Miss S. Elder appeared at the door, holding a covered dish. I heard shouting, "You okay, sweetheart?" I nodded. "Good," she said, "because your dad would have hated that party." I laughed through the tears. She came in and set the food on the counter. "Welcome home," she said softly. The silence after the party was unlike anything I'd ever felt in that house. It wasn't the lonely, suffocating quiet I remembered from childhood. It was a calm, settled stillness like the house itself had exhaled after holding its breath for too long. For the first time in years, it felt like home. I walked through each room slowly, fingertips grazing the furniture. Most of it was still the same Mom hadn't had time to redecorate yet. But all the photos of Dad? Gone. Replaced with flower vases and generic art prints you'd find in a dentist's waiting room. I went to the storage closet and pulled out the old photo box, the one Mom tried to hide years ago after Dad got sick. Inside were hundreds of snapshots, Dad teaching me to ride a bike, holding me in the pool, smiling with cake smeared on his face at my 8th birthday. I put every single one of them back up. By the end of the afternoon, the walls looked like they remembered us again. That night, I curled up on the couch with a bowl of mac and cheese and an old hoodie that still smelled faintly like Dad. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. My home. My peace. But peace has a price. It took exactly 2 days before Mom started trying to worm her way back in. First, it was a voicemail, high-pitched, syrupy sweet. "Lena, sweetheart, I think we got off on the wrong foot. Emotions were running high. Let's talk." I didn't respond. The next day, she tried again, this time a long, weepy message about memories and how no matter what, we're still family, still nothing. Then came the texts. "You're being unfair. Your father would be ashamed of you. I gave you life, and this is how you repay me." Each one was a needle, but they missed the mark. Because I finally understood something I hadn't before. Blood doesn't make someone your family. Actions do. Mom had made her choice long before the will. I was just the last to realize it. Still, I won't lie, it hurt. You can be right, and it can still hurt. I talked to Victor again, just to be sure everything was airtight. He assured me the will was legally bulletproof. Dad had left nothing to chance. I wasn't required to give her a cent. Not the house. Not the money. Not even a couch cushion. But even knowing that, I had to ask, can she contest it? Victor smiled gently. "She can try. But your father was smart. There are recordings, documentation, multiple witnesses. Her case wouldn't survive a courtroom for more than 5 minutes. So I blocked her number. Not out of spite, but self-preservation. That woman had drained me dry for too long. I wasn't going to hand her the match after I finally put out the fire. In the meantime, I threw myself into school. Finals came and went in a blur. I passed every subject, even aced my economics final, something Dad would have bragged about for weeks. The day grades were posted. Kelsey and I celebrated with milkshakes and curly fries at our favorite 24-hour diner. We sat at the booth by the window, same as we always did, talking about college plans and summer road trips like we weren't still recovering from emotional whiplash. That night, I went home smiling. But just as I stepped onto the porch, I noticed something. The mailbox was open. Inside was a single envelope. No return address. My name written in block letters. I hesitated, then opened it. Inside was a flyer. Cheap paper. Badly printed. Engagement party postponed celebration. It had Mom's name on it and Sean's. New venue. Rented hall. Different date. She was trying again. I nearly laughed. The desperation in that flyer practically screamed from the page. I didn't go. Of course not. But I heard all about it later from Miss S. Elder, from Kelsey, from the grapevine that runs like wildfire in our neighborhood. The party was a disaster. Half the guests didn't show. The food was cold. The DJ bailed last minute. Sean looked miserable the entire time. Apparently, Mom spent most of the evening drinking white wine and telling anyone who would listen that I had manipulated Tobias into rewriting the will, that I was a spoiled brat who turned him against her in his final days. When someone asked why she didn't contest the will, she snapped, "Because lawyers are thieves." The irony almost made me choke. I sat on the porch that night with a mug of cocoa, watching the stars and thinking about how Dad used to point out constellations. "That one's Orion," he'd say. "Strong shoulders like you'll have someday." He wasn't wrong. I'd carried so much more than I ever should have, but I was still standing. Still, I wasn't immune to doubt. Was I doing the right thing? Could I have been more forgiving? Then I remembered the look on her face when she dragged my suitcase down the stairs. The way she twisted her mouth when she said, "I want you gone." No, forgiveness might come someday, but trust? That door was locked. Over the next few weeks, I started putting things in motion. I met with Victor to release the trust Dad had set up for college. I applied to Ashton University, his alma mater, a top-tier business school 3 states away. It felt right. Like finishing the story he started, I sold off what I didn't need: old furniture, extra appliances, anything that felt like dead weight. I kept Dad's desk, though, and his notebooks. One of them had a list titled, "Things to Teach Lena," half of them he'd never gotten to. But now, maybe I'd teach myself. I found his old farm ledger tucked behind a row of textbooks. It was full of crop notes and seasonal forecasts. That's when the idea sparked. Agricultural business. A bridge between what he built and what I wanted to create. The thought gave me a reason to get up every morning again. A reason to dream. Even Mrs. Elder noticed the change. "You look taller," she said one afternoon while trimming her hedges. I grinned. Maybe it's just the weight I dropped. She didn't ask what weight. She didn't have to. Instead, she handed me a small potted herb. "For your kitchen. Every home needs something alive in it." I placed it on the windowsill that night. Basil, simple, fresh, hopeful. It felt like the start of something. Then, just when I thought the chaos was behind me, she called. Not from her number. She must have borrowed someone else's phone. I let it ring. Then ring again. Then I answered. "Lena," she breathed. "Please don't hang up. I didn't speak. I'm in a bad place," she said. Sean left. "The bank's talking about freezing my account. I need help." There it was. Not an apology, not remorse. Just need. "I raised you," she said, voice shaking. "You owe me." "No," I replied quietly. "You raised your reflection. I raised myself." She went quiet. Then the line went dead. And just like that, I felt free all over again. The day the acceptance letter arrived, I almost didn't open it. I'd been checking the mailbox with this weird mix of dread and hope, convinced that the universe was holding its breath along with me. When I saw the envelope from Ashton University, I froze on the spot. Kelsey was with me. She held out her hand. "You want me to open it?" I shook my head. "No, I need to do this." It was thicker than I expected. Inside was not just a letter, but a welcome packet, campus brochure, and a handwritten note from the admissions director. "We're honored to continue the Caldwell legacy." My heart didn't just skip its soared. I was in. Dad's school. His dream. My future. I looked up at the sky without realizing it. Whispered, "We did it, Dad." Because even though he wasn't here to see it, everything he did made it possible. And I felt him in that moment more than I had in weeks. Kelsey screamed. Her mom cried. I laughed so hard I nearly choked. It was the first time joy felt real again, not something I had to earn through suffering. It wasn't just about college. It was the first step away from the version of me that had been shaped by my mother's absence and my father's strength. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was building something. That weekend, I started packing. I didn't take much, just what mattered. Dad's notebooks, his old leather watch, the framed photo of us at the county fair, me on his shoulders with cotton candy in hand, a few clothes, my laptop, a thick green hoodie that still smelled like his cologne. I walked through each room one last time, saying quiet goodbyes like the walls were listening. The kitchen where I'd learned to make eggs at age 11 because Mom couldn't be bothered. The hallway where I used to hide when their fights got too loud. Dad's office, still neat, still humming with his energy. His chair, turned slightly like he had just stepped out to take a call. I couldn't stay here forever. This house, for all its history, wasn't my final chapter. It was just the origin story. Before I left, I made one call. Victor answered on the second ring. "Lena, good to hear from you." "Hey." I need your help with something, I said. I want to sell the house. He paused. Are you sure? Yes. I think it's time to stop standing in the ruins and start planting something new. He didn't argue, just said, I'll start the paperwork. I hung up and exhaled so deeply my chest ached. I'd spent my whole life trying to survive under someone else's roof. Now I was choosing my own. Mom found out 3 days later. I don't know who told her, maybe someone from the neighborhood. Maybe she saw the listing online. Either way, she showed up uninvited. She pulled up in a car that clearly wasn't hers, probably borrowed or leased. Her sunglasses were oversized, her lipstick was smudged, and the desperation on her face was more obvious than either. I watched from the porch, arms crossed, heart steady. She didn't even say hello. You're selling the house? She snapped. Yes, I replied, calm, even. You can't do that, she said, storming up the steps. This is my home. No, I said simply. It never was. It was Dad's, and now it's mine. But it's not yours. Her hands balled into fists. Where am I supposed to go? I tilted my head. I don't know, Mom. Maybe to one of your rich friends? Or Sean? Oh, wait, he left. Her mouth opened, but no sound came. You made your choices, I added. I'm just finally making mine. I brought you into this world, she said, voice cracking. You wouldn't even exist without me. And yet, I became everything in spite of you. She stared at me like she couldn't recognize what I'd become. Then, finally, she walked back to her car. Didn't slam the door, didn't shout threats. She just drove off. And that was the last time I saw her. The night before I moved out, Kelsey and her mom threw a small goodbye dinner in the backyard. Twinkle lights, grilled corn, lemonade in mason jars, and an off-key playlist of our favorite songs from middle school. We laughed. We danced barefoot in the grass. We cried a little too. Miss S. Elder came by with homemade pie. Your dad would have loved this, she said, wiping her hands on her apron. He'd be so proud of you. I hope so, I whispered. She smiled. He didn't just hope for your future, Lena. He planned it. And now, you're stepping into it. I hugged her, long and hard. When I got home that night, I stood in the living room for a while. No music, no distractions, just memories. I left one thing behind Dad's favorite coffee mug. It sat on the counter, still slightly chipped from when I dropped it at age 12. I didn't want to take everything. Some pieces belonged to the past. Campus was loud and unfamiliar in the best way. I met my roommate, a pre-law major with a nervous laugh and 3 kinds of lavender spray. Classes started fast. The business department was intense, but I loved it. Numbers made sense in a way people never had. Strategy felt like control. Logic, like freedom. I joined a student group focused on agricultural tech. We brainstormed projects that merged sustainability with smart logistics. My first pitch involved a crop tracking system inspired by Dad's old handwritten ledgers. The professor nodded. That's thinking like a founder. I smiled. I guess it runs in the family. Weeks turned to months. I didn't hear from Mom again. Not a call. Not a message. Not a rumor. It was like she'd finally accepted that she couldn't reach me anymore, not really. And honestly, that was its own kind of peace. One day, while studying in the campus courtyard, I got a notification from the real estate agency. The house had sold. I stared at the screen for a long moment, then slid my phone back into my pocket. No tears, no second guessing, just that quiet feeling of a chapter closing. That night, I stood by the window in our dorm kitchen, sipping tea and watching the stars peek through the clouds. Orion was there, still standing, still strong, just like Dad said. It was late spring when I came back, not for good, just for a visit, a short breath of home before summer classes kicked in. Kelsey picked me up at the station in her dented Toyota, blasting throwback songs as we laughed our way through back roads lined with wildflowers and sun-faded fences. It felt like the town hadn't changed a bit. Same cracked sidewalks, same coffee shop on the corner, same people walking their dogs in slow loops like time didn't move here, it just circled. But I had changed. I could feel it in my shoulders, in my steps, in how I no longer flinched at old memories. I was taller inside, more rooted. Feels weird? Kelsey asked, glancing over. A little, I said. but not in a bad way. We passed the street that used to lead to my old house. I didn't look down it, not because I couldn't, but because I didn't need to anymore. That door had been closed, locked, and sealed. I'd built a new one in its place. Still, coming home made space in me I didn't know I had. Space for reflection, for small comforts, for finishing things that had once been left undone. Mrs. Elder was the one who suggested it. We were sitting on her porch with lemonade in hand, legs up on a rickety wooden bench that had probably outlived us all. "You know," she said, watching the sun dip behind the rooftops, "your dad used to talk about a garden." I looked over. "A garden?" She nodded, said he wanted to plant something lasting, something people could walk through and feel peace. It took me a second to answer. "He never got to." "No," she said softly, "but maybe you could." The next morning, I found myself back at the community lot, an open patch of land behind the old library, where the city had been planning to build a parking lot before the budget got cut. I made a few calls, met with a local council member, pulled strings I didn't know I had. 2 weeks later, we broke ground. Not just me, Kelsey, her mom, Mrs. Elder, neighbors, volunteers from school. Even my economics professor, who happened to be in town for a seminar and showed up with gloves and a sun hat. We planted rosemary and lavender, rows of tomato vines, strawberries along the path, and a small section just for sunflowers. I named it Caldwell Grove. There was no plaque, no speech, just the soft shuffle of soil and laughter, the buzz of bees and life blooming where once there had only been silence. And in the middle of it all, a wooden bench with Orion carved into the side. Dad would have liked that. Summer passed quietly. I stayed in town longer than I thought I would, volunteering at the garden, helping local kids learn about soil health and plant growth. I spoke at a youth leadership event, got invited to a sustainability panel. It was strange how fast things fell into place once I stopped chasing people who were never going to show up. Stranger still how peace didn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it came with dirt under your nails and the smell of basil on your fingers. And then, one day, the letter came. Mailed. Stamped. No return address, but I knew the handwriting immediately. I stood in my dorm room, holding it like it was made of fire. I didn't open it right away. I sat with it, tea in hand. Calm heart. When I finally unfolded the page, it wasn't angry, or manipulative, or cruel. It was tired. "Lena, I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from. I messed up. More than I even understood at the time. I thought love was something you could demand, not something you earned. I've lost everything. Not just the house or the life I thought I deserved. I lost you. And that's the part I regret most. I'm in Louisiana now, living with a cousin I barely knew. I get by, but not well. Sometimes I think about calling, but I don't. I wouldn't know what to say. I don't expect forgiveness, but I hope someday you might find room in your heart to let go of the anger. If you never respond, I'll understand. Just be happy." Natalie, I folded the letter slowly and placed it in a small box under my bed. I didn't cry. I didn't call. I didn't write back. Because she was right. Forgiveness isn't something that's owed. It's something that grows, if and when the soil is ready. Maybe mine still needed time. By the time fall semester rolled around, I felt steady, like I'd finally found my rhythm. I was mentoring 2 freshmen, running the agritech club, working on a proposal for a sustainable food co-op on campus. I even got an internship offer from a startup building supply chain tech for small farms. I told them I'd think about it, because now I had options. One night, walking back to my dorm after a study session, I paused in the courtyard. The wind was cool, the stars sharp. Orion stood high above the city, watching. Constant. Familiar. I thought about Dad. His quiet strength. His relentless belief in doing the right thing, even when no one's watching. And I thought about how much I'd grown not in spite of everything, but because of it. Because I'd learned that sometimes family isn't who you're born to, but who shows up when everything else falls apart. Kelsey, her mom, Mrs. Elder. Even strangers who became part of my journey without realizing it. And, of course, Dad. The man who didn't just leave me a house or a trust fund, but a blueprint for how to live with grace, grit, and heart. I smiled up at the sky. "I'm okay," I whispered. I'm really okay." No one answered. But the silence felt like an embrace. Story 2. Megan is my twin sister, and my name is Lauren. You may assume that because we are twins, we would be close, but that isn't the case. The only similarity between us is that we were born on the same day. I was obviously not what my parents wanted from the beginning. I suppose I was the unexpected additional baby that they had only planned for. Megan resembles our mother exactly. Blue eyes and blonde hair. With my dark hair and eyes that made everyone think of my grandma, I resembled my dad's side of the family. My mother never loved the same granny. My safe haven was grandma's shoe business. The scent of leather and polish enveloped me as soon as I entered, like a cozy embrace. My home life's cacophony was muffled by the soothing sound of heels tapping on the hardwood floor. Compared to our little flat, that shop seemed more like home. My little businesswoman is there. When I rushed through the door after school, Grandma would say this in a kind voice. With her face, etched with years of knowledge and laughter, would light up with genuine joy. I felt genuinely noticed and wanted. When I was so little that I could hardly look over the counter, I began to assist in the business. I would watch Grandma operate the antique cash register by being lifted up onto a stool. I assumed greater responsibility as I grew older. I was well acquainted with that store by the time I was a teenager. At home, things were different. Why can't you simply dress like your sister, Lauren? With a groan, Mom would try to fit me into another pink frock with frills. Megan looks adorable in it. Feeling foolish in a sweatshirt adorned in rhinestones and featuring a large seal on the front, I gaze into the mirror. I appear foolish. As we got older, I would murmur. It became increasingly more obvious how differently they regarded us. The ideal princess, Megan, was incapable of doing anything wrong. Me? I was only present. I was the diligent one. Lauren, you must put in a lot of effort and succeed, as Dad would say. After that, you can assist in looking after your sister and us. However, we share the same age. I would object. Why must Megan also put up a lot of effort? Mom would stare at me like that. The one that indicated I was being challenging once more. Your sister is gifted in different ways. She would advise you to concentrate on being accountable, in charge. That was simply their way of telling you to follow our instructions and not to whine. Our flat was small. Mom was a store assistant, and Dad was an insurance agent. Despite the constant lack of money, Megan managed to get what she desired every time. The newest technology, new outfits. She had it, whatever it was. Grandma's hidden stockpile was the only thing that offered me hope. When we were born, my parents received a sizable inheritance from Dad's mother. The purpose of it was to fund our college education. Both of us. Lauren, do you remember? Once, when I was staying at Grandma's place, she told me, "You and Megan will use that money to attend college. Nobody should be able to convince you otherwise." I did not break that pledge. Similar to a lifeline. That was the one thing that gave me hope for the future. Not only a life of labor and caring for other people, I had a glimmer of optimism as our 17th birthday approached. Perhaps our parents would treat us more fairly now that we were older. Perhaps they would at last recognize me for who I truly am, not only Megan's shadow. I was completely mistaken. Our birthday morning was fresh and sunny. Megan remained asleep, most likely dreaming of the lavish celebration her mother had been organizing for weeks. Just as I finished my toast, I was already awake and feeling a mixture of fear and excitement in my stomach. I was called into the living room by my father. He had a little metal box in his hand and a serious expression on his face. Mom was standing next to him, a narrow, tight line pressed on her lips. "Lauren," Dad remarked, sounding as though he were addressing a complete stranger. "He has to learn how to be responsible and save money." He gave the package to me. It appeared lighter than it actually was. It feels cold to the touch. A key for a secure deposit. Like a boulder falling in deep water, a heavy sensation took hold of my gut. "You will have to work for the money if you choose to attend college." Mom described her voice as abrasive, emotionless, and frigid. A tiny metal box was set in front of me by her. "You may keep your savings in this way." It seemed as if someone had hit me. I was unable to talk for a time because my breath became stuck in my throat. My voice was tiny and unsteady when I eventually found it. However, What about the funds your grandmother provided you for schooling? What location is it? Suddenly, it felt cooler in the room. Dad's attention shifted to the wall behind me, and Mom's gaze sharpened. Lauren, there is no funding for your schooling. Mom's voice was as sharp as a razor. If you choose to study, you will have to earn it. My heart was racing. This isn't possible. Grandma told me, though. My thoughts began to race. Before I could say anything more, Mom interrupted. Her tone was stern and foreboding. You're not allowed to discuss this with your grandmother, she yelled. My blood froze when her eyes flared. I'll make sure you never see her again if you do. You get it? Unable to talk, I nodded and gulped hard. The only person in my life who genuinely cared about me was my grandmother. The only person who gave me a sense of importance was she. It was too painful to think that she might never be seen again. The jagged edges of the little key rubbed against my palm as I clasped it in my hand, but I hardly felt the pain. Throughout the meanwhile, there was a buzz of excitement throughout the flat. Every corner of the room was occupied by Megan's pals, who were conversing and laughing noisily. I felt invisible as I stood in the kitchen. I was not permitted to invite anyone, as Mom had made clear. Lauren, this is Megan's night, hurry up. Cake time has arrived, Dad called, sounding a little happy, as if he were trying to hide the truth. I made my way to the living room, dragging my feet. Megan sat facing a huge cake. The candles flickered in front of her, her face glowing. They all began to sing. She blew out the candles, closed her eyes, and made a wish. Cheers and claps erupted around the room. Silently, the first took the knife and sliced the cake, distributing pieces to Megan's pals. Nobody even gave me a glance. Finally, I took a tiny bit for myself. The frosting was way too sweet, making my stomach twist. Then I noticed Mom and Dad exchanging a look. I knew that look. It meant something big was coming. Megan, honey, we have a surprise for you, Dad said, smiling. Come with us to the parking lot. Mom infused enthusiasm in her voice. Megan's eyes were wide with excitement as she leaped to her feet. Her parents were right after her as she virtually raced out the door. She returned inside after 15 minutes, her face shining with delight. She held up a pair of automobile keys, spinning them around her finger. Mom and Dad got me an automobile, she screamed, her voice full with enthusiasm. Can you believe it? The room erupted in cheers. Her pals rushed to her, giggling, embracing her, and requesting to see it. I simply stood there with the empty dish still in my grasp. All I received was a key to an empty box, while they purchased a vehicle for Megan. My parents could not be more ideal. Megan shrieked and skipped to my seat. She smiled as she dangled the automobile keys in front of my face. What have you got me for our birthday, sis? I just looked at her with a blank expression on my face. A vehicle? They purchased an automobile for her. What did I receive? A future filled with debt and an empty safe deposit box. Okay. Megan's smile turned smug as she pressed. Where's my present? My absence was abruptly broken by something inside of me. I spit and got up so quickly that my chair nearly toppled over. My gift to you is that. Have fun. Ignoring the strange quiet behind me, I bounded straight to our shared bedroom. I grabbed my bag with trembling hands and began tossing clothing inside it. What are you doing, Lauren? From the doorway came Mom's words. Her voice was more irritated than worried. I'm going. Without glancing at her, I said, I'm going to stay with Granny. I pushed by her, pulling my luggage after me. She grasped my arm, her fingers pressing over my wrist. Do you recall? She gave a hiss. Don't mention the automobile or the college funds to your granny. I get it. Without saying goodbye, I wrenched my arm free and left. Nobody made an attempt to stop me. The bus trip to Grandma's seemed to go on forever. The evening air was cold and the sun had already set when I arrived. The door was opened by Grandma. Her expression changed to one of astonishment and worry. What are you doing here, dear Lauren? I assumed you and your pals would be out celebrating. Naturally. Mom is lying again. All I wanted was to see you, I muttered, suddenly worn out. Can I spend tonight here? Of course, honey, she murmured quietly as she moved aside to make room for me. Everything from the day whirled around in my head as I slept in the peaceful comfort of my grandmother's guest room that evening. The automobile, the party, the safe deposit box. Everything seemed like a nightmare. I wanted to share everything with Grandma. I wanted to express everything. But I kept thinking about Mom's warning. Grandma couldn't be lost. All I had left was her. Grandma was busy preparing breakfast in the kitchen the following morning. My thoughts began to create a notion. I inhaled deeply before speaking. Would it be possible for me to work at your shop, Grandma? As in, really? I made an effort to sound informal and perhaps remain here for a while. Simply said, Megan and everything are making the house incredibly noisy. With a spatula in hand, Grandma turned to face me. A sweet grin appeared on her lips as her expression relaxed. Oh dear. You can, of course, she said. I wish you were here more often. As simple as that. After school, my life took a turn for the worst. I began working at the shoe business owned by my grandmother, finding out more about the company's operations. She patiently taught me how to deal with challenging clients and manage inventories. We all walked home after closing the store together each evening. When Grandma was preparing supper, she would ask me about my day and genuinely listen to my responses. In my life, for the first time, I was genuinely taken care of, genuinely cherished. Weeks became months and days became weeks. I never returned home. I didn't want to be honest. Dad and Mom never phoned. They didn't ever show up. I seemed to have vanished from their lives. And everything was all right with them. Grandma insisted on giving me my entire income, claiming that I had earned it justly. I saved as much money as I could, observing the gradual growth of my financial account. But despite Grandma's generosity, attending college still seemed like a far-off goal. I never saved enough money, no matter how much I did. My 19th birthday passed by before I realized it. Then came high school graduation. As Megan's name was called, I sat in the auditorium and watched. With proud expressions on their faces, Mom and Dad gave a hearty shout from the audience. Grandma was the only person in the back row to clap when my name was called. Where my parents' affection should have been, her joy filled the void. Following the ceremony, I watched as my parents showed their admiration for Megan by snapping photographs of her, giving her presents, and giving her hugs as if she were the most amazing thing ever. They didn't even give me a glance. I was practically accustomed to it by now, but it still ached. You did well, child. Grandma hugged me tightly as she said, I'm really pleased with you. I breathed deeply on the way home. When I finally spoke the words I had been keeping in my heart, Grandma, my heart was racing. I don't think I'll be attending college this year. Grandma scowled with perplexity. But why, my love? She inquired. I provided your parents with funds to cover Megan's and your tuition. You should be able to go in plenty. My stomach turned over. I kept thinking about Mom's warning. I fumbled for a response. I simply want to increase my savings initially. I hoped my voice sounded as I spoke. Research. I want to be more independent, be able to pay for my own home, and be able to rent an apartment close to college. Grandma took a good look at me. I hoped she wouldn't catch me lying, so I held my breath. At last, she gave a nod. Lauren, that's so mature of you, I said. She said, I'll help you if that's what you desire. I let out a sigh of relief. So I did just that. Megan gathered everything she would require for college, including new clothes and supplies for her dorm room. Every day at the business, I put myself into my work. Taught me new things about life, career, and myself in addition to shoes. My new normal was working at the shoe business and living with my grandmother. I got up early every morning to assist Grandma with breakfast before going to the store. The scent of polish and leather, it felt like home after my escape. With greater attention than I had ever experienced, I immersed myself into my task. I kept a grin on my face while assisting customers in finding the ideal shoes throughout the day, even when I had to deal with the most challenging ones. I reorganized displays, washed the floors, and made sure everything looked flawless for the next day after shutting the store in the evenings. Lauren, you truly have a gift for this, as Grandma would say. Seeing how I resolved a challenging return or persuaded a client to purchase shoe care supplies, she began to educate me more about the company as the months went by. I gained knowledge about how to handle paperwork, balance the finances, and manage inventories. I absorbed every instruction like a sponge, even if it wasn't always simple. One day, you might be able to govern this place. One evening when we were going over the monthly accounting, Grandma told me, You, like your grandfather, have a true business sense. Her remarks made me feel proud in a way I had never experienced before. Someone saw my potential for the first time in my life. But despite my intense job schedule, my desire to attend college remained unwavering. I saved practically every cent of every paycheck I got, spending only what I required for necessities. It wasn't simple. Girls my age were laughing with their pals as they passed the store carrying shopping bags. Even though I could afford them because to my employment discount, I would watch them try on gorgeous shoes but decided not to purchase them. I reminded myself of my objective each time I declined a new wardrobe or a night out. The year passed quickly, filled with saved paychecks, shoeboxes, and receipts. Then, one day, I looked at the amount on the screen as I checked my bank account. Barely believing it, I had completed the task. With trembling hands, I had saved enough for college. For the first time in a year, I picked up my phone and phoned a number. Mom answered after a few rings, seeming shocked. "Hi there. Hello, Mother." I spoke, attempting to maintain a steady tone. "I wanted to inform you that I had sufficient funds saved for education. For the upcoming semester, I'm applying." A protracted hush ensued. Then Mom said something. "Why don't you visit? We ought to discuss this face to face." With a range of feelings churning in my gut, I nodded. I saw my reflection in the store window when I hung up. It wasn't the same girl who had fled a year ago who was looking back at me. When I entered my former flat, she seemed stronger and more self-assured. There was a strange feeling. There was no longer the comforting smell of home. Rather, the scent of new furnishings and fresh paint filled the air. After giving me a stern smile, Mom hurried me inside. "Come see what we've done to the place, Lauren, my love." She led me across the living room while chirping. As Mom pointed out every new detail, the beautiful couch, the elegant dining set, the pricey decorations, Dad nodded and followed. After that, we came to a halt in front of my former bedroom. I went cold. The door opened to show a beautifully furnished room that looked like it belonged on a Pinterest board, but it was obviously made for just one person. A designer was brought in. Mom smiled and gushed. "For Megan, isn't it ideal?" I felt like a stranger in my own history as I stood there. Where are all my belongings? My question was hardly audible above a whisper. My photographs, my books, everything I left behind. Mom and Dad looked at each other. "Oh, sweetheart." Mom's voice was too pleasant to be phony. "We needed to get rid of all that outdated stuff. You get it, correct? We have to create room for new vitality." It was as if someone had hit me in the gut. Years of recollections, my life was discarded like rubbish. Trying not to cry, I blinked a lot. "You asked me to come, but why?" Despite my negative feelings, I made myself say it while maintaining a steady tone of voice. For a moment, Mom's smile faltered. "Would you want to take a seat? I'll prepare some tea for us." I was seated on the couch's edge before I realized it. A platter of my old favorite cookies and a cup of tea are in front of me. In my mouth, they tasted like dust. Mom's voice became quiet. "Be cautious, Lauren's beloved. We are in a bit of a predicament." I remained silent. I simply waited. "It has to do with Megan." After hesitating, she went on. She concluded that she wasn't cut out for college. 1 year later, she left. I went cold. That money was squandered. The money that should have been for us both. The problem is that Mom continued without glancing at me. "We require assistance. Approximately $30,000. My drink nearly suffocated me. "What, however that is?" "That's the majority of my college savings." Mom let out a sigh and patted my hand. I resisted the want to draw away and balled my fingers into a fist. "Lauren, is college truly necessary for you?" Fake pity was evident in her tone as she questioned. "You're living with Grandma and doing quite well at her business. Your costs are minimal." My head was whirling. What I was hearing was unbelievable. Mom lowered her voice as if she were telling a secret, leaning in a little. "Megan needs a place to live. Her current boyfriend wants to live with her. We believed the funds may be used as a mortgage down payment." Suddenly understanding what she had just confessed, she trailed off. Her gaze strayed to her father, whose expression had become rigid with pain. The room was silent. Hefty, dense, and brimming with unsaid realities. I inhaled deeply. I was bracing myself for a surge of emotions that threatened to overwhelm me. Then I answered, "No," looking her in the eyes. I maintained my position, speaking more steadily than I had anticipated. "I'm not going to give you the money now." In a flash, Mom's expression altered. She first became pallid. Then she became angry and her skin went crimson. Anger flooded her eyes as they narrowed. I went on, "Why don't you use the money that Grandma gave you for my college or sell Megan's car?" When Mom spat out her next words, her lips twisted. Her voice was poisonous. "Lauren, there's no money left." Every statement struck me like a blow. We spent it all on new furniture, clothes, repairs to the house, and Megan's car, which is now totaled. Megan was intoxicated when she had an accident. It won't be covered by insurance. I was ill. That entire sum of money was for my future. Lost. Focuses on luxury, negligence, and Megan's rash decisions. Mom wasn't finished, though. Suddenly, her voice became sickeningly sweet. She could, anyhow. College isn't actually necessary for girls. You ought to concentrate on locating a suitable partner. I was enraged by her cavalier dismissal of my goals, my efforts, and my whole future. "How about me?" I questioned, my voice trembling with incredulity and rage. "What about my desires?" Mom waved her hand like she was striking a bothersome fly. "Lauren, you are in our thoughts. After we go, this flat will be yours. Isn't that sufficient?" I was unable to resist. I let out a chilly, resentful chuckle. "I'm not interested in your flat. I'd like to get educated." Mom's face became nearly unrecognizable as it twisted with anger. Her voice fell to a low, menacing growl as she took a step closer. "Lauren, you'll follow directions. Now give us the money." However, something had changed within me. The terror that had long dominated me split, then splintered to pieces. It was the first time in my life that I didn't fear her. Even I was taken aback by how quickly they moved. I quickly ran for the door after ducking beneath her extended arm. I heard a flurry of threats, profanities, and frantic requests as I made my way down the stairway. However, I became less influenced by their remarks with every step I took. When I finally went outdoors, the refreshing evening air felt like a cool shower of water on my face. At that moment, my thoughts was rushing like a lightning strike. I was halted in my tracks by an idea. Why hadn't I mentioned the money to Grandma? She had given my parents money so I could go to school. The cash they'd squandered on Megan. I had kept quiet because I was afraid. I was afraid my mother would actually carry out her promise to keep me away from Grandma. I was 19, though, and now I'm an adult. I was no longer under their control. They were unable to determine who I could and could not see. And I understood exactly what I had to do for the first time in a long time. Before I could stop myself, the words flowed out of my mouth like a broken dam as soon as I entered Grandma's house. Grandma listened as I told her everything about the money she had given my parents so that Megan and I could attend college, how they had spent it all on Megan, and how they had forced me to work for myself. With each syllable, her face darkened. She was quiet for a long time after I was done. In her lap, her palms tightened. Then she whispered, "They deceiving, manipulating," in a low, angry voice. She shook her head and inhaled deeply. "I'm really sorry, Lauren. Before I could say anything, I ought to have inquired about this years ago." She was already up, holding a phone. As she called my parents' phone, I gazed in wonder and perhaps a little terror. The next events resembled watching a hurricane approach. My parents first denied everything, but Grandma persisted. Every time they offered an explanation, her voice became harsher, and each time they lied, it rose higher. At last, they broke. "You dare?" Over the phone, I heard my dad yell, "You ungrateful little snitch, Lauren." Grandma flared her eyes dangerously. She said, "Don't you dare talk to her like that." Then she hung up without saying anything more. Her face softened as she turned to face me. "I swear to you, Lauren, my love, I'll safeguard your future. Let me take care of it while you concentrate on your aspirations." For the first time in my life, I poured myself into college applications, and the ensuing weeks went by quickly. I was pursuing my aspirations, free from the influence of my family. It didn't seem genuine. Then my phone suddenly rang one day. Megan was the one. "Hello, sister." Her voice was light and informal as she chirped, as like nothing had transpired between us. "Please do me a favor. Are you able to lend me $6,000? I nearly choked. For what purpose? With excitement, she mentioned this fantastic online course. It shows ladies how to woo wealthy guys. My goal is to become a millionaire. Become wealthy quickly. I swear I'll repay you. Stunned, I gazed at my phone. Megan, that's horrible and crazy. I'm not going to pay for it. Come on, she whimpered. Don't act like such a fool. I don't want a dull, everyday existence. And I broke up with Patrick. I desire elegance and prosperity. No, I spoke aggressively. Not at all. For things like these, don't call me again. I hung up, with an odd mixture of revulsion and sympathy. I didn't talk to Megan or my parents again after that. After many months, I enrolled in college with a business management major. It seemed like a gift every day, studying, expanding, transforming, becoming the person I was destined to be. Grandma came to visit one weekend. We were sitting in my small dorm room. She gave me a smile before casually revealing something shocking. She added, "Your parents had to sell the apartment. Their debt is overwhelming them. They borrowed money for Megan's absurd plans. When they arrived at my door, they requested to move in." I gasped. "What were you saying?" A gradual, contented smile appeared on Grandma's face. I gave them the precise location. I brought up how they handled you, how I was misled by them. I then informed them that they were no longer my problem. I gave Grandma a deep hug as tears welled up in my eyes. "I'm grateful for everything, Granny, for supporting me and having faith in me. Without you, I'm not sure where I'd be." Like Mom used to do when I was a child, she hugged me close and rubbed my back. I had a profound feeling of calm as we sat together. It hadn't been an easy road, and I knew there would be more difficulties to come. But I was free for the first time in my life, not subject to manipulation, free from unjustified demands. I am free to be who I am. Story 3. Triplets are said to share a unique bond that is greater than that of other siblings. I think that was the case for Rachel and myself as children. Despite having identical appearances, our personalities couldn't be more unlike. I was cautious and careful. She liked taking chances, though. As children, however, we were constantly together. But everything changed in high school. Rachel joined the gathering of people who were popular while I concentrated on studying. We gradually drifted away till I hardly noticed. Our lengthy conversations in our shared bedroom grew shorter and eventually devolved into brief hellos in the corridor. By our final year, we were almost strangers sharing a home. During a meal one evening, Rachel abruptly declared, "I'm moving in with Mark." She had just graduated from high school at the age of 19, and she was madly in love with her wealthy boyfriend. Mom's coffee almost suffocated her. "What about college, though?" she inquired. Rachel twirled her spaghetti and shrugged. "Not everyone is cut out for college." "I don't have to worry about that," Mark replies. "Everything will be handled by him." I noticed that my inner concern was mirrored in my father's eyes. However, Rachel's decision was final once she made it. She was married and residing at Mark's home across town in a matter of weeks. I went in a different direction. While Rachel gave birth to her first child at age 21, a handsome boy, I concentrated on my studies at college. She had a daughter a year later when I was studying late for my finance exams. Rachel appeared to have the ideal life by the time I received my degree with honors and began working in finance. 3 amazing children, a wealthy husband, and an opulent lifestyle. However, things don't always go as planned in life. I had my own problems, even though she appeared to have it all. 3 years after graduating from college, I got married. And although it made me happy, it didn't result in kids. Infertility, the doctor concluded, was evident. Dreams were crushed by the word, which felt like a big weight in my stomach. I had no idea that I had. "Olivia, it's not the end of the world." Holding me while I sobbed, my spouse would say, "We can be the cool aunt and uncle, or we can adopt." Naturally, he was correct, but that didn't lessen the suffering. We ultimately made the decision to divorce amicably, despite our best efforts to keep our marriage together for a few more years. Sometimes the gap that life creates cannot be repaired by love alone. In the meantime, I saw from afar how Rachel appeared to have the ideal life. Pictures, lavish clothing, family trips, and her adorable children were all over her social media accounts. I experienced conflicting feelings. I envied her capacity to have children, but I was also glad for her. After that, my phone was overflowing with missed calls and texts one morning. Even though Mark had discovered Rachel's infidelity on several occasions, it wasn't the biggest surprise. The findings of the DNA testing he had performed on both children completely altered the situation. He had no escape from either of them. When Mom called to tell me what had happened, I could hear Mark's irate voice over the phone. "Leave my house with your belongings packed, and don't count on me for anything. Not even my children are among them." As simple as that. Rachel's idyllic existence came to an end. One day and 9 years of marriage were over. She didn't have a home, a job, or a college degree. She was forced to return to live with our parents, bringing her 3 bewildered and distraught kids with her. What was she contemplating? On one of our late-night calls, I asked Mom. How could she harm her children in this way? Mom gave a long sigh. Olivia is your sister and you know her. She has always been present in the moment, but she now requires our assistance. The children require our assistance. Despite their best efforts, our parents' meager income was insufficient to meet their own expenses. I had the funds to assist because I was the head of the department at the commercial bank where I worked. I initially assumed Rachel would use the money for the children, so I just sent it to her. That delusion was short-lived. I unexpectedly stopped by their house one day. Rachel was walking around in a brand new designer outfit, while the children were dressed in shabby, outdated clothing. What are you doing? In order to avoid the kids hearing, I spoke quietly as I confronted her in the kitchen. It was for the children. Rachel rolled her eyes and looked in a brand new, small, shiny mirror. Olivia, I have to look nice. What other means do I have to find a new husband? You're not understanding. You have your career, but I need to secure my future by spending your children's money on makeup and clothes. What I was hearing was unbelievable. Oh, please, she snapped, closing her compact mirror. Not everyone can be perfect like you, Olivia, with your fancy job and your high morals. I need to get back out there and find someone new, someone with money. That was the moment I knew I couldn't trust my sister to take care of her kids. From then on, I took charge. Every weekend, I picked up my niece and nephew, took them shopping for clothes, shoes, and school supplies, anything they needed. I made sure they have top-quality winter jackets, soccer cleats, and everything else. Soon, it became our routine. The kids spent weekends and vacations at my house where they had their own rooms. We went on tiny expeditions, museums, parks, movies. I taught them how to bake cookies, helped them with their homework, and listened to their tales. Then one day, everything changed. It started like any other day. I was at work when my phone rang. Mom's voice was trembling so hard I could scarcely understand her. You should come over now, Olivia. It's Rachel. She's no longer there. My mother was sobbing on the couch as I hurried over. Dad is sitting close by, holding a piece of paper in shaky hands. Fortunately, the children were at school and did not know that their entire world was going to be completely upended. She simply walked out. Dad stated as he gave the letter to me. This was discovered this morning. It wasn't even a handwritten letter. They typed it. Rachel, classic. She left her kids behind and couldn't even bother writing by hand. Kindly, family. I found my true love. He fulfills every desire I've ever had. And in order to start over, we're relocating to a different state. He has no desire to parent someone else's children. To be honest, I don't either. All they will do is obstruct my enjoyment. I had to put the book down. Anger was trembling my palms, but the next part chilled my blood. I'm really doing you a great favor, Olivia. Don't have children. So here you are. I'll give mine to you. Think of it as a present from one sister to the other. How could she? In my fist, I crumpled the paper. How can she take advantage of my infertility in that way? What about the children? They weren't pups you could throw away. They were 11 and 12. Mom dabbed at her eyes. How will we proceed? At our age, we are unable to raise them. Olivia. And I'll accept them, given your father's condition. Without hesitation, I said. In any case, they essentially live with me. Tomorrow morning, I'll hire a lawyer. I was surprised at how simple the legal procedure was, mostly because Rachel explicitly said that she had no interest in getting involved. She didn't even bother to show up for the custody hearing when she was summoned to appear in court. Rather, a notarized letter that completely waived her parental rights was sent. The court looked at my house, my resources, and the close relationship I already had with the children. I became them legal guardian a month later. Rachel's absence became a normal part of life as the years went by. No calls, no birthday cards, not a single text message to her kids either. I can very clearly recall the first Christmas following her breakup with Ryan. At school, her kid created a lovely clay ornament. Should we ship it to Mom, in your opinion? Has she not? He inquired. Amy, is he holding the fragile piece in his hands? His sister only gave a head shake. Why even bother? She no longer even knows where we reside. The initial years were the most challenging. I occasionally see them examining old family pictures in an attempt to figure out why their mother departed. However, those times gradually decreased in frequency. New memories we were creating together took their place. Rachel would occasionally phone her parents. They were always informal when they told me, as if they didn't want to annoy me. Mom would swirl her tea as though it needed more mixing and remark, "Your sister called yesterday. She's doing okay, actually quite good. Did she inquire about the children?" Even though I already knew the answer, I would still ask. Mom would turn her head away. She was rushing. You are aware of the situation. However, I did accidentally catch a peek of Rachel's life. Dad would swiftly dismiss his web window as soon as I entered the living room. However, I did catch a glance first. Images show Rachel sitting against the hood of a Ferrari, standing in front of a shelter island estate, and sailing on a yacht in Hawaii. It must be pleasant. One day, when my mother hastily shut off the laptop, I mumbled. While her children wore hand-me-downs, she lived the good life. My first year with them, Mom said, Olivia. However, I interrupted her. Actually, she has enough cash for high-end purses, but she was unable to send Ryan a card when he was named to the honor roll. Couldn't afford to buy Amy an outfit for her dancing performance. I eventually gave up searching, ceased to inquire, ceased to wonder. Work and family have to be carefully balanced in my life. A daily schedule that I adhered to. We managed pretty well without Rachel in the picture somehow. I put in a lot of effort at the bank during the day. I assisted with schoolwork at night. Science festivals, dancing performances, and soccer matches occupied the weekends. Dating. I didn't think about that at all. No one realized that my children came first, even when a few guys came and left. Yes, my children, for they had turned into that. They prospered in spite of, or perhaps because of, the absence of their mother. Ryan had a knack with numbers. Even as a child, he put his stipend in stocks and assisted me in keeping my checkbook balanced. He was considering a career in finance by the time he was 17. Conversely, Amy enjoys arguing. Every dinner discussion became an entertaining legal argument. She informed me that you ought to have been a lawyer. I grinned one evening as we worked on her college application. The family just needs one lawyer. Furthermore, who would teach your brother about finance? Mom. From the kitchen, Ryan called. He had begun to call me that somewhere down the line. You are aware of my superiority in money. He was not mistaken. Ryan had already landed an internship at a prestigious financial business. By the time he received his college admission letters, Amy, meanwhile, was able to choose among the top legal schools in the nation. It was difficult for them to pay for their schooling. The cost of attending a prestigious school is high. I never regretted a dime, sold my vacation house, and took up extra consulting work on the weekends. It was worth every sacrifice to watch them triumph. The sense of pride I got when they named me Mom was greater than any home or yacht, no matter how luxurious. Ryan and Amy had other ideas for my 51 birthday than what I had in mind. They emphasized, Mom, it's a milestone. My parents, old acquaintances, coworkers, and extended family were all invited to the best restaurant in town, which they had reserved before I knew it. It was the ideal night. There was a lot of discussion, laughter, and glass clinking in the private dining area. Tales of the last 20 years poured forth. While Amy had everyone captivated with her courtroom anecdotes, Ryan enchanted the audience with his expertise in finance. Then, to get attention, Ryan tapped his glass. Olivia, too. Mom, I mean. He smiled as he corrected himself. Would you mind spending a moment outside? For you, we have a small surprise. As we went outdoors, just in front of the restaurant, the chilly night air pushed across my face. A brand new Mercedes was parked near the door, its enormous red bow fluttering in the wind. What? What is this? Still stunned, I stuttered. Amy smiled as she approached me from behind. Amy put her arms around me while crying uncontrollably. "Mom, this is for you, because to us, that is who you are. The lady who reared us, loved us, and shaped who we are now was more than just an aunt who took us in." I was unable to control my own tears. Our guests gasped and applauded as they spilled out onto the pavement behind us. Mom was using a tissue to wipe at her eyes as my folks waited at the doorway. Together, we shot some photos. In front of the automobile, my kids and I were grinning and wiping away joyful tears. I shared one of the pictures on social media later that evening with a little description. "These two amazing people who call me mom have blessed me beyond measure. The most amazing birthday present ever. Their love, not the automobile." My phone rung after 4 days. I recognized the number right away, but it wasn't stored. "You dare?" The speaker crackled with Rachel's voice. I let out a sigh. "Please pardon me. Don't act foolish, Olivia." I looked at the pictures. "Those are my kids. My automobile should be that one. We are triplets. It was also my 51st birthday. I am also their biological mother." A real mother? I was unable to control my rage. When Ryan required surgery, where was their biological mother? When Amy experienced her first breakup? Once they graduate, that is. "That's unfair," she yelled. "I'm the rightful owner of that automobile." I inhaled deeply. Pay close attention, Rachel. They are grown-ups, to start. They choose who will receive gifts. Second, motherhood isn't about blood. The key is to be there every day, through all the highs and lows. Third, rather than requesting presents, perhaps you need to be pleading with them to forgive you for leaving them. She said, "You've always been so self-righteous." "No," I answered firmly. "I've been there all my life." "That's the distinction. Please don't give me another call until you need to apologize to your kids." My phone rang once more the next morning. "It was Mom this time," I replied. "A sleepless night has left me still sluggish. I'm anticipating something on Thursday. Supper, Olivia, sweetheart?" In the begging tone she used when she asked for a favor, Mom remarked, "We must discuss the vehicle." I took a seat. "How about it? It's your sister. She is going through a very difficult period. She is currently in dire straits after her partner left her for a model in her 20s. You know, you might be able to offer her the automobile. Right now, she needs it more than you do. You've got a great one already." What I was hearing was unbelievable. "Are you serious?" I interrupted her. "My kids got that automobile as a present. I appreciate your love and commitment throughout the last 23 years. I can't just give you this spare tire. Because Rachel damaged another relationship, I won't just give her the car." I spoke aggressively. I heard Mom concealing the phone after hearing my dad saying something in the background. She returned a second later. "Olivia, you must act like the adult in this situation. Your sister erred. Yes, but it was a long time ago. We must forget and forgive." I raised my voice. "Let go and go forward." She left her kids behind. Without a second thought, she prepared a letter claiming that they would destroy her happiness and left. She also suddenly realizes she has a family since that her most recent wealthy lover has broken up with her. "Olivia, that's unfair," Mom demanded. "She was a young woman. She erred. She left them at the age of 30. I lost my temper. And where were you and your father when I worked 65 hours a week to pay for their college education? When I paid for their college by selling my holiday house? Have you advised Rachel to forget and forgive?" There was stillness in those days. "Please, Olivia, this is where we're done." After saying that, I hung up. That seemed to be the end of it. I was mistaken. My phone was buzzing constantly that night. Friends and family began messaging me to check on me, stating that if I needed to chat, they were available. I opened social media, bewildered. I felt sick to my stomach. Old family images were included in Rachel's lengthy, emotional essay. Her account of what happened sounded like a soap opera. How I had used the legal system to steal her children. I had used deceit and deception to turn people against her. She claimed in her article that my abuse had compelled her to leave town. In the meantime, I elevated my social standing by using her kids as props. She wrote, "My own sister, who was unable to bear children of her own, spotted a chance to be the hero. She stole my children by taking advantage of a trying moment in my life. She is now requesting costly presents from them in exchange for their alleged kindness. They were never loved by her. Her only goal was to seem well in front of her wealthy pals. The part that hurt the most was seeing Mom's name among the hundreds of likes, comments, and shares the post received. My own mother had openly supported Rachel's falsehoods after having watched me raise those children who had witnessed every hardship, late night, and sacrifice. At midnight, I got a call on my phone. Ryan was the one. Anger was tight in his voice. The post was visible to us. Mom, for hours Amy has been in tears. How could she have twisted things this way? I inhaled deeply in an attempt to soothe him. It's all right, my love. The truth is known by those who are important. No, Amy's voice interrupted. They were on speaker, I suppose. It's not acceptable. We will not allow her to escape punishment for this. Mom, do you recall the letter? The one you retained? Of course, I said. I distinctly recalled finding it in my home office, securely stored in a fireproof box with their birth certificates and other vital documents. It wasn't spite that retained it. Since a mother's natural tendency is to shield her children from harm they haven't yet anticipated, I had kept it. Ryan urged that we present our case. The truth, not her fabricated narrative in which she is the victim. I sat at my computer the following morning, my palms lingering over the keyboard. Beside me was the letter. The lettering were still crisp enough to cut, but the paper had become yellow with age. I described a woman who abandoned her kids with nothing more than a chilly, typewritten letter stating that they would interfere with her pleasure. I wrote about their college acceptance, middle school graduations, and letters that were never shared with their biological mother since she never even asked for their address. One particular letter always had an empty chair. I scanned the letter after that. Alongside my remarks, I posted that last callous farewell. The date stamp was unmistakable. The bottom signature. It's obvious. The post blew up in a matter of hours. The astonished texts came from family members who had supported Rachel's account of events. We didn't know. Could she? Then Ryan said something. When our mother decided we weren't worth keeping, I was 12 years old. 12 when she exchanged us for a man who didn't want the children of another man. However, we weren't left behind. We were fortunate and turned into our mother. By decision, not by blood. She picked us each day. We now decide on her. The mother who gave birth to us was the subject of Amy's statement. You're her mother? However, where were you? When I experienced my first heartache, where were you? When Ryan's arm was broken, our actual mother was present when we graduated. Olivia, our aunt, became just a mother. Years of devotion, sacrifice, and steadfast support earned her the distinction. My parents said nothing. Nothing to say, no private messages, no likes. Their quiet was quite telling. Ryan wasn't finished yet, though. He gave me a call a few nights later. His voice was full of excitement. I've been working on a project, Mom. I believe it's time to demonstrate to everyone the true meaning of family. I started crying as I watched the video he made. It was a compilation of our lives together, set to mellow music. Images and videos taken from antique home recordings and family albums. There I was, supporting Ryan at his first soccer match, assisting Amy with her science project, giggling over handmade birthday cakes, jammies and Christmas mornings, opening presents, their college and high school graduations, and a life based on love rather than blood. A family formed by decision, not by accident. As I stood there grinning proudly, I adjusted their tassels and graduation caps. Post it, Ryan muttered. This should be the last word. A footage from my 52nd birthday marked the end of the video. With our cheeks beaming with joy, the three of us hugged in front of the Mercedes. The caption said simply that love, not blood, is the foundation of a family. We appreciate you picking us each and every day, Mama. My phone rang the morning after we uploaded the video. My mom was the one. I almost left it on voicemail, but I answered out of habit. How could you harm your sister in this way? Anger was trembling in her voice. That kind of humiliation in front of everyone. She has always made you jealous, always attempting to outdo yourself. Just stop there. I stopped, taken aback by how at ease I felt. No one was humiliated by me. I merely spoke the truth and provided evidence. Olivia, it's time to move on from the past. The done is the done. You must apologize to your sister and remove such posts. She currently resides with us. There is nothing left for her. I glanced at my desk's framed picture. Amy and Ryan during their college commencements. With pride and affection on their faces, they both gave me firm embraces. "No, Mom," I firmly responded. "Just because it's easier for you and Rachel, I won't pretend that the past didn't happen, and I won't apologize for being honest. Olivia, Mom, you made your decision. When you liked her, you sided with her. When you strike her, she lies about me. I post on social media. When you offered justifications for her separating from her own kids, I inhaled deeply. She is your daughter. However, Ryan and Amy are my kids. I made that decision, and in contrast to Rachel, I fulfilled my promise." The line died. Somehow, I knew it was the last time we would ever speak when she hung up. 7 months have passed since then, via relatives. According to what I've heard, Rachel is still attempting to rebuild her life while living with our parents. Ryan and Amy no longer go to see their grandparents. The idea of seeing the lady who left them is too much for them to bear. A new normal has been established in life. I spend a lot of time with my kids. Even though the family is now smaller, Thursday meals are still customary. Ryan's company is doing really well. Amy too. I was floating for days after hearing the news from Amy. "Mom," she replied, stretching out her hand, her eyes shining as I took in the beautiful engagement ring. "Will you help me organize the wedding? I want everything to be perfect." As I drew her into an embrace, tears welled up in my eyes. Naturally, currently fabric samples and bridal magazines dominate my dining room table. We were debating floral arrangements yesterday. Amy fell silent. "What is it, my love?" I inquired. She gave a quiet smile. Amy smiled and continued, "I was just thinking, when I have kids someday, they're going to have the best grandma in the world. Like you were with us, you'll be fantastic with them." I grinned as my heart began to expand. Life really does come full circle. Years ago, doctors told me I would never have children of my own. They were wrong. I may not have given birth to them, but I ended up with 3 amazing kids who picked me just as much as I chose them. And now, as I assist my daughter plan her wedding, I look forward to the next chapter of our journey, one filled with even more love, more pleasure, and maybe, just maybe, the sound of small feet racing about calling me grandmother.